Even with all the obstacles in their way, the Chargers have officially clinched a playoff spot in 2025, which is a huge testament to the culture that Jim Harbaugh is building.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. David, what do we got today?
Playoffs? We're talking playoffs? Absolutely, we're talking playoffs because the Chargers have clinched their spot in the postseason for the second consecutive year under Jim Harbaugh. And they also have everything they want in front of them. The AFC West is still up for grabs. If they win out, they will claim the crown.
Absolutely, and if they beat the Texans this weekend, it will be very real. But also, Denzel Perryman suspended 2 games, which I think is absolute nonsense and a huge overreaction on this buy or sell Tuesday. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. David, the Chargers got big news after the Colts defeat on Monday Night Football. The Chargers have officially clinched the AFC playoffs, which is just incredible considering kind of the roller coaster that this season has been, the ups and downs and moments, especially I would say most recently after that Jaguars loss, where you just looked at this team and you just said, this isn't a playoff team. Like, this is not a team that's going to be able to win the games down the stretch that they're going to need to with the guys that they're missing, including their, 2 all-pro level tackles in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. And what do? They win their next 4 games, including beating both teams that were in the Super Bowl last season, and then most recently beating a high-powered Cowboys offense that was a legitimate challenge to them. This is a huge accomplishment for Jim Harbaugh and what he is trying to build in Los Angeles, which is, to me, a sustainable winner that can be year in and year out contenders for a championship. And I think they're still probably a year ahead of that last part of it. But I do think when you're making it to the playoffs for the first time in Justin Herbert's career in back-to-back seasons, and for the first time for this team since 2008, 2009, yeah, this is a pretty huge accomplishment for this team to be able to go through what they have this year and still be, with 2 weeks left, clinching a playoff spot.
Yeah, in the first year of Jim Harbaugh, after the season that they had, the schedule definitely helped them out, getting them to where they were into the playoffs. This year, they had no such help. They had one of the most difficult schedules in the National Football League, and I think this is where Jim Harbaugh's coaching prowess really shine through. With all of the injuries, all of the circumstances, it didn't matter. I mean, next man up is something that we hear as a cliche. Every single coach has been able to say it and has said it, and we all know it. But there's a difference between saying it and then actually being able to show it and do it. Jim Harbaugh and his staff has gotten his players ready to play regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the injuries, week in and week out. And now we sit here and get to enjoy the Chargers having a playoff spot secured with 2 games left in the 2025 season.
Absolutely. And I know that we've had the conversation about, is it worth making it if you're going to lose once you get to there? And I think that that's the most promising thing about this team so far this season. They'll have another chance to kind of make us believe in it a little bit more this week against the Texans. But not only making it with 2 games remaining, but also starting to kind of feel again like you might actually be able to win once you get there. And I think that's because of, the tougher schedule that they've had ahead of them. I mean, last year they, had really, really easy layup opponents, way more of them than they had this year. Yeah. But last year they also played 7 teams that made the playoffs. This year it's going to be skewed because the Chiefs aren't in it, right? You swept the Chiefs, which is still a huge accomplishment in my mind against a team that's had your number. And you're a big reason that by the time that game came around, they were going to be knocked out of the playoffs because you beat them twice. But also, they are 3-1 versus playoff teams this year. The only team they've lost to that's currently in the playoff mix are the Jaguars, but they beat the Eagles. They were able to beat the Steelers. They beat the Broncos the first time around. So I think that is another great kind of measuring stick for this team, showing that they can win some of those games, especially with the way that they won them, having to grit some of those games out. And again, the most important thing is the just to establish, if we have Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert here, the bare minimum, no matter what major injuries you sustain, is going to be making the playoffs. And the Chargers, I think, are showing that this year by clinching it again in 2025. But it also comes on the heels of Phillip Rivers kind of helping them get in. That was fun to watch Phillip Rivers sling it. Of course, he's in a game where, he's playing really well. His team is fumbling kickoffs and taking possessions away from him. His defense is just getting shredded like Swiss cheese. And I hope that's not the last time we see him, David, because it was a lot of fun getting to watch him.
Phillip Rivers does things at the line of scrimmage that we just don't see in today's NFL. Like his command of the offense is rare. It's one of those things where it goes to show you, like, if you intimately know what the offense is doing and what the defense is trying to do to you, and you have the ability to check into more favorable plays, it can kind of mitigate the loss in arm strength. I think we saw that, right? Phil can't really get it down the field as far as he used to. He didn't always have the strongest arm anyway. So, we knew that was something he was going to have to rely on, but it was really cool to see him go out there in the first half and just smoke the 49ers defense. Just knew everything that was coming at him, was able to get in the right plays, made the throws, was still very, very accurate, very competitive. And how could you not feel a little bit, nostalgic after watching the quarterback that we've watched our entire lives play quarterback for the Chargers go out there after 5 years with very little prep time, go out there and still be able to do it. I think, honestly, this might enhance his Hall of Fame resume, being able to come back off the couch and be able to show that he can operate at a still very, very high level. That was fun to watch.
Ton of fun to watch. I hope we get to see him again this week. It'll be really interesting because now I think the nice thing about the Chargers clinching, even with Rivers losing, is they didn't actually eliminate Phillip Rivers from playoff contention, because they still have a chance, the Colts to make the playoffs. And now they need the Chargers' help, because the only path that they have is to win their last two games, beat the Jaguars this week and beat the Texans in week 18, and have the Chargers beat the Texans this weekend. So Phil's still in it. I wonder if they'll play him Sunday if they're officially eliminated from playoff contention. I'm hoping his last throw isn't a pick six, with him doing what we saw him have to do so many times with his defense, not forcing a punt in a game and him trying to have to play hero ball to get them back into it. But it is Buy or Sell Tuesday, and we do want to get into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions, including this one from Hernandez, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers will win out and win the West in 2025. David, they're 2 games out. The Chargers already had 11 wins and a chance to get to 13 in 2025. Are you buying or selling that they're winning out?
Well, but if you would have asked me this question before the Houston Texans almost lost to the Raiders, then I would have said no, because I've been very optimistic. You've all, have watched me. You know who I am and how I conduct myself. I'm always going to be leaning more towards the Charger side, but this was a game that always scared me. I always thought, like, man, that Texans defense is for real. Seems like CJ Stroud was starting to figure it out, and then they kind of dropped down a little bit. To even have it close against that team, that should never have happened. Absolutely not. And so I think that definitely gives me a lot more hope that the Chargers can compete with this team, can beat this team. It's just, I have to see it. I got to see it, man. Yeah. And if I do, I think that's a huge shot in the arm of confidence for every single Chargers fan that's out there, because this is one of those teams where, we were talking about it before we started. It just seems like there's a couple teams that have the Chargers number. It seems like the Texans are one of those teams, and the Chargers are going to have to exercise that demon. And if they do, I feel confident that they will win out and they will beat the Broncos in week 18 and take that AFC West from them.
Yeah, obviously, that's a lot of caveats. And, I think to your point,
let me state it clearly then. Yes, good. I believe they are going to win out. They're going to take the AFC West. I think they're rolling. I think the way they're playing right now on both offense and defense is a better version of a football team than the Texans are playing, and the Broncos are going downhill. The Jaguars took some of that confidence, that swagger away, and the Chargers are peaking at the right time.
That's true. I'm going to sell it just because I just have a hard time believing against the 2 defensive fronts that they're going to have to play the next 2 weeks, and not knowing what the Jamari Sawyer status is going to be this week as well. It's just hard for me to imagine right now. Obviously, if they beat the Texans and can have success against the Texans, there's no reason to think they can't do that also against the Broncos, where Bo Nix is 0-3 against the Chargers in his career. But that's a defense in a stadium in January that's going to be really hard to win a game in. They've only lost one game there all year. But yeah, I think that the Texans showed their mortal for sure. It also took 260-yard touchdowns by Ashton Genty, a couple of broken plays to keep the Raiders in it, but still, that defense is very, very much for real. And the Chargers, unfortunately, look like they'll be without one of their best defenders because Denzel Perryman has been suspended 2 games by the NFL, which I think is ridiculous. We're getting into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different, and that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly, player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked in to every snap, every drive, with every possibility. And right now, with even as bad as that game was last year, the Chargers, maybe because of that kind of floppy performance by the Texans, are 1.5-point favorites against the Texans this weekend. They've won 3-0 as underdogs the last 3 weeks. They'll be asked to do it as a favorite this week. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com to place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. David, we still have more buy or sells to get into, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. And one of the things I think was a major overreaction was the league's reaction to Denzel Perryman's hit that cost them 15 yards on Sunday, an unnecessary roughness where he hit, I believe it was Ryan Flournoy, while he was on the ground, helmet-to-helmet hit, which I thought was a very valid penalty. I think, obviously, it's a bang-bang play that if you slow it down, it's going to look a lot worse than if you're watching it in real time. And at that point, that's a live receiver who has not been touched yet. Either way, didn't have really a huge problem with the actual, penalty itself. You have that hit that's going to get called. But to me, it just seems like overkill. Considering it's not, that I know of, I don't think he's had a helmet-to-helmet at all this season. I believe that he didn't have one of those flags last season either. The last one I could see was 2023. Did get fined last year for a hit, so he has had some fines in his past. At the same time, 2 feels like overkill to me. I mean, how are we going straight from fines to just a full 2-game suspension with or without kind of what his past has been?
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Honestly, to me, I think if you watch Denzel Perryman play this year, he's been able to show people what form tackling looks like how it's supposed to be, like how you're supposed to, lead with the shoulder, not with the head, be able to wrap up, be able to grab, get his technique of tackling is impeccable. I mean, and you match that tackling technique with his pure stopping power. Like he's a, one of those, downhill power linebackers that really is a force against the run. Like he is a big part of this Chargers run defense from an attitude and effort and physicality standpoint, but I don't think it ever, crosses that line of being egregious other than, that hit. Yeah, that was something, obviously a flag was warranted. I would agree with that. A suspension, especially 2 games, I think that is egregious. That is something that definitely shouldn't have happened. He also said that he spoke with Flournoy after the game. They were able to squash it. They said that they were good. So I think that should be taken into account as well. I'm hopeful that, because he is going to appeal it. That's already been put out that, he's going to appeal the suspension. Hopefully, at the very least, that it gets reduced. And hopefully, to me, I hope it gets fully expunged. Because, it just seems like this time of year, that's such a huge hit going up against 2 very, very difficult, very, very tough football teams that are on your schedule. You need everybody. It's all hands on deck because you're trying to go win a division. You need everybody out there.
You absolutely do. And I think the hard thing is that's really, I think, tough for Chargers fans to stomach is the fact that you have DK Metcalf who's grabbing a fan in the stands and trying to punch them And that warrants the same suspension as what Denzel Perryman got. That's going to be
ridiculous.
hard to, yeah, and it's apples and oranges, obviously, but one of those things seems way unlike the other because one was actually a football play. And like I said, like, even if they went to one game, I would disagree with it, but I can understand, how they got to that. To skip one game altogether, like last year, they suspended Derwin James with no helmet-to-helmet contact the entire season. The first time he has a very questionable
that was horrible
one,
too.
100% against the Steelers, and the tight end he hit actually said he didn't think it was a penalty. They suspend him a game, no warnings, no fines. They suspend him, and honestly, like, I understand why fans are so upset about this, and we had some buy or sells about that, including this one from Revis Island, who said buy or sell, the league is preying on our downfall, suspending Denzel Perryman. Like, I understand why they feel like that, and this is my thing, David. Like, to me, what this feels like is maybe like some of the great defenses of years past, that the Chargers have earned themselves a reputation because guys have been flying around. Guys have been destroying players on the other side of the football. You go back to Tony Jefferson getting ejected in the last game. You go back to Denzel Perryman's big hit. Derwin James is huge hit he had last week.
Yeah.
And it feels like they've garnered this reputation where they're
Yeah.
not getting judged the same way as everyone else. And it doesn't feel like this is because he might have gotten fined last year or the year before that, where it's like, no, that's ridiculous. You don't go straight to a 2-game suspension off of that. I do think it was a worse play than what happened with Tony Jefferson, which was more bang bang and the receiver kind of ducked into it. Yeah. Denzel Perryman hit a sitting duck that was on the ground helmet to helmet, and he was already full speed, when he was down and caught that ball, and he doesn't know if that ball is complete or not at that point. He's trying to dislodge it, but still, understand the penalty. To go to 2 games for that, it makes me think that the Chargers are getting a little bit of a reputation about them that, hey, they're going to play through the whistle, and I don't think that's the worst thing, but to suspend a key part of the Chargers defense for 2 games with 2 games left to play when they're right in the thick of a playoff race, I feel like is really narrow-sided by the league, and I think it's something that should absolutely be appealed and at least reduced to 1 game, because the stats aren't what makes Denzel Perryman. Look at the stats of the running game and the run defense when he was out and what it's been like since he's been back, and you can see kind of where, he has really helped out, especially in short yardage, especially on the goal line, and he is just a physical enforcer, and they can't really replace him with the guys that they have, even though I do feel good about Troy Dye. I don't think their linebackers are in a terrible spot, but for what he specifically brings to the table, I don't think they can replace it, which is what makes it so frustrating. But let's get to this one here from Boltzilla, who says, buy or sell. This is a take. The Chargers are in a better position to face the Texans' defensive line this year than the playoffs last year. Context, they have been playing extra linemen and developing quick game more than last year. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with it, but it's not just for those reasons. I will buy it. The extra offensive line snaps are definitely been a huge part of the Chargers' success, especially after the bye week, both in pass protection and in run blocking. It's been a huge, huge part of the offense and a big positive. The quick game, we got to see that really come alive against the Cowboys, where they were getting the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands quickly and into the hands of open receivers. I think that's a very important key factor there, getting the ball to open receivers. But also, it's the running game. It's having Omarion Hampton back, which is one of the big things. If you remember, the Chargers ran it for 2.3 yards per carry against the Houston Texans in that playoff game. Yeah. It's really, really hard to play offense when you're playing it one-dimensional. So having the ability to have more weapons, which that was a concerted effort, we all know that. They definitely have more weapons, and they are being able to protect a little bit better. They're getting the ball out quicker, and they're able to run the ball, pick up chunks on the ground. That is massive. And when you look at, how the Houston Texans almost lost the game to the Raiders, it was because Ashton Jeanty had a 50-plus yard touchdown, including 128 yards on the ground to go along with that, and a 60-yard reception for a touchdown. So big explosive plays from the running back. And I'm sitting here telling you that Omarion Hampton is better than Ashton Jeanty, and I feel like he's played better than him, and he is a dangerous weapon that he now will enter the fold against the Texans on Saturday.
Yeah, I think the running game is a good part of that, right? And then the weapons that they have. As far as just the Chargers offensive line dealing with that Texans defensive line, I don't know if the quick passing game and the extra offensive lineman sets are enough to outweigh the fact that you had Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater last year when you played that team. Because why do I think that's important? That's two of your three best offensive players, in my opinion. If you think there's better ones outside of Justin Herbert and those two guys, there's probably an argument for it. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it just, obviously, you don't want to overreact to the one game you saw last week where everything looked really great and forget about how this offensive line really struggled with a really good Eagles defensive line, missing Jalen Carter and the issues that they had against Kansas City as well. So I do think the biggest thing they have going for them this game is the fact that they saw exactly what didn't work in that last matchup, and they have that tape to be able to try to devise a different plan than the one they already know did not work in the last time these two teams faced. And I do think that's a big advantage. But we still have more to get into, because a big part of how you feel about this game going this weekend is how much you trust Greg Roman. And we have one fan whose overreaction is that Greg Roman is actually underrated. We're getting into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys about CarGurus, because car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. And with CarGurus, you get the confidence that you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on cars that you want. Because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal, and CarGurus makes the whole process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else, so you can shop the way that you want. And I think, having recently bought a new car for my wife, it doesn't feel like a good thing when you're in there and stuck in there for 4 hours and constantly on your toes, hoping that you're not getting overcharged for something, or just getting bamboozled, or just getting stuck in there for as long as we were. Make it fun. It should be a very exciting time, and you'll love being able to filter by everything from mileage, trim, features, so you're only seeing cars that actually fit what you need, and their price drop alerts are a lifesaver. CarGurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major online automotive marketplace, you'll find the best deal. Shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at CarGurus.com. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com. David, we still have more buy or sells to get into, and thank you to all of the everydayers out there who contributed on today's show. We will have a little bit of a condensed week, so we appreciate everyone who wanted to contribute and get on the show today. We'll still have the keys for success tomorrow, since there's a little bit of a consolidated week with Christmas coming up. There won't be a show on Friday. Might be a bonus show on Saturday because the Chargers play this week, but you guys can still get involved if you want to. But David, do want to start with a couple of voicemails that we have here about trusting Greg Roman, which is not exactly where I thought we'd be starting, getting to on today's show. Let's hear what Luke has for us this week.
Hey, D&D, this is Luke from San Diego. Buy or sell. Greg Roman is actually doing a better job than most of us realize, so he will be kept, but the major changes in the offense will be 2 out of 3 of the interior offensive linemen will re-sign Zion Johnson, but Bozeman and Becton will be replaced. Thanks for everything you do.
Dave, that's what today is all about, right? Getting different perspectives, trying to see, how much stock to put into it. This is a different one. What do you think? Are you buying or selling that Greg Roman might actually be doing a good job?
Yeah, I think it's something where you have to look at all the context of how the season has gone for the Chargers and the injuries that they've withstood, and being able to look at it from a macro perspective. I mean, the Chargers are sitting here with those injuries, being able to, and with the injuries to Justin Herbert as well, and still have figured out a way to carve out 11 wins for the second consecutive season. So yeah. I think you do have to give him some credit. I still feel like there's some issues that absolutely still need to be fixed, some spacing issues that I feel like is still an issue that the Chargers have to improve upon if they really want to get where they want to go. But yeah, I feel like it's hard to think of a situation where they don't bring back Greg Roman. I just feel like with the winning total and the situations that he's had to navigate through successfully so far, I feel like that's probably been earned by him. And I think it's obvious also that the interior will definitely be switched out. I feel like, I guess I said that last year. I was pretty confident they were going to make some adjustments, and they did not, but I don't know how they could possibly go watch the tape on this season and feel like the interior play has been good enough. I mean, Zion, I will agree. I feel like he has played pretty good football, especially with the situation. He's been incredibly durable as well. He's the type of player I feel like you definitely want to bring back, but the other two have to get improved, and the Chargers have a ton of money to be able to do it, and they don't have a lot of draft picks, so they're going to have to make it work. But being able to go and grab some people in free agency to improve those obvious deficiencies.
Yeah, I think what's fair to say is that there's no way we could possibly see what he could do because they're missing two of their top three offensive players this season, and both of them at the same position, and it's taken just a devastating effect on the offensive line. But the Chargers had a lot of issues last year, too. And last year around this time, we were having conversations about how many different halves that season in 2024 the Chargers went scoreless or everything completely just disappeared offensively, right? That's why you can't be kind of, myopic about this. Like, we have to look at the full picture. And again, it's hard not to overreact after one game where he had a really good game. In that game, you still have the questionable 3rd and 1 shot that they took. You still have the play where, I think Ladd makes the catch while standing, being able to tap Keenan Allen on the shoulder because their routes are so close together. There are issues, and he's been good in certain games, and he's been really bad in certain games. I still think he can be very predictable, and I think he'll have the chance to kind of show otherwise over the last 2 weeks. But the last 2 years, last year was, okay, well, Justin Herbert's banged up. We have to limit the playbook because of that, and we're not able to fully see it. This year, it's you're missing Rashawn Slater, you're missing Joe Walt, so we have to limit the playbook, and we can't show you the full thing. It's like, those are legit excuses. At the same time, something's always going to be there to make excuses about.
Yeah.
Right? It could be something different next year. You have 2 receivers that are missing, and now we have to limit the playbook. Like, at a certain point, you're based on your ability to evolve, right, and work around it. And I just think that against good defenses, we haven't seen that enough, and it feels like against the good defenses when they've had success, it's Justin Herbert hero mode. And when you look at how some of these wins have come down, it's Justin Herbert putting the team on his back against a good Broncos defense, Justin Herbert bailing the Chargers out against the Dolphins with not great play calling, but great individual efforts to do it. And you look back at the Eagles game, same thing. He has to put the offense on his back and run and beat himself up, Justin Herbert does, to get that win. So they've been gritty, they've been limited, but I don't think it should just be like, oh, well, he's done enough just because the Chargers have won 11 games. That's the same conversation we had last year when they decided not to improve 2 of their 3 offensive linemen, because that was the same exact conversation we were having last year, saying the same thing. There's no way they can look at this and think that's good enough, and the only improvement they made was Mekhi Becton, who hasn't been nearly enough of an improvement to, even though he's probably been better than Trey Pipkins was last year when he's out there, not nearly enough, as we've seen. But he'll have a chance these next couple of weeks, and as we know today, he'll have a chance in the playoffs, and Athir also thinks we should trust him.
Daniel, David, Athir Bio-Silk using an overreaction. Blake Coleman can be trusted in the playoffs with his play calling. I'm buying it because Coach Harbaugh is still in charge. What do you got to say? Thank you. Love you.
I just think this has to do with like how much you think Jim Harbaugh is involved in the day-to-day game planning of this offense, which I don't think that he is. Like, I think one of the things that set Jim Harbaugh apart as a coach and why he's been so successful is his ability to pick out his staff and then trust his staff to do their job. Unfortunately, that loyalty can backfire at times. And with Greg Roman, it's going to be hard. He'll have 2 weeks to convince me, but as of right now, going into the Texans matchup, I find it hard to believe that I'm fully going to trust Greg Roman once the playoffs arrive.
Yeah, this is a head coach that said, like Moses, I'm going to die leaning on my staff. So let's just remember that. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to see it. You're going to have to show me, because the last time Greg Roman was calling a game in the playoffs, it was Ladd McConkey with 196 receiving yards and nobody with more than 20. And didn't have a running game at all for a guy who supposed to be one of the best running game offensive coordinators in the NFL, probably in NFL history, right? If you look at the top, rushing attacks that he's been able to author throughout his time as an offensive coordinator, like that's not really outlandish to be able to say, but
no,
he's going to have to show it to me. Like he's going to have to put together a, masterful type game plan performance before he has that vote of confidence from me.
I think the hit rate in which, his teams have been top 10 in rushing yards basically every year until last year, right? It shows you how good he is in that regard. But at the same time, like, the passing game's important, and you have to be able to throw it as well against good defenses and not be one-dimensional. But also, like, You know who also had some of the best rushing attacks and really high-powered offenses? Greg Roman's Ravens, right?
Yeah.
And what did they do in the playoffs? They scored 17 in 2022. They scored 23 over 2 games in 2020, and they scored 12 in 2019 with Lamar Jackson coming off of his first MVP award. That's an average of 13 points per game in the last 4 games that he's had in the playoffs, right? And teams are different, right? Like it's not as black and white as that, but like to say I trust him at this point would be disingenuous. And I hope that I'm wrong, because at the same time, like, there have been glimpses, there have been good game plans. His game plan against the Steelers, right? Knowing what they were up against, and he had a great game plan there to do what they had to do offensively. But at the point where I'm at right now, it does feel like the Chargers are going to need some dominant defensive performances over these last couple of weeks for them to get wins. And man, if they go off and torch one of these next 2 defenses, I reserve the right to change my mind, and I hope that it actually happens. So hard to trust him right now. The good news is for him, he can earn that trust back over these next 2 weeks, because those are 2 playoff teams you have and 2, maybe the 2 best defenses in the entire NFL. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. A little bit different this week. Tomorrow we'll be back here with our keys for success before getting to crossover Thursday on Thursday. Locked on Chargers, Locked on Texans, with revenge on the mind. So make sure to not miss it by subscribing or following for free on the Locked on Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And if you want an ad-free version of the Locked on Chargers podcast audio-wise, you can do that now on the Locked on Everydayer Club, where you can subscribe for $5 a month or $50 a year and get an ad-free version of the audio part of this show, which is awesome, and also exclusive access to the Locked on Discord channel that's just for Locked on Chargers fans if you're interested in that. But to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked on Chargers YouTube channel. And listen wherever you get your podcast from, and find us every day on our social media at Locked on LAC on Twitter, at Locked on Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked on Chargers Facebook page. So, big test this week. Again, short week, and we'll be back tomorrow with our keys for success. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.